What's up, everyone? It's Winslow, and let's do a little track breakdown. Before we get started, just want to say, if you haven't heard this track, you haven't heard this EP, this track is Better Nate Than Lever off the Home Alone EP, just came out a few weeks ago. For when this video was recorded, obviously, if you're watching it later, it was probably way longer than a few weeks ago. But anyway, this will be the first of a few track breakdowns. If you want to see the other, I would say 3 tracks, but 2 tracks off the EP, because 1 track is the project file is just, it's gone. So press F in the comments. The other 2 tracks I'll make breakdowns for as well, whichever ones those are. I can't remember the names right now. Anyway, but those will be on Patreon first, and they'll probably be there for a while. So if you want to see anything about those, why not join Patreon? You know? You don't have to. You just wait a little bit. Unless you don't like waiting. And they'll be there. And I'll be eternally grateful. Anyway. Enough talking. Let's get right into this. So, this tune started sometime last year. It says August 29th, 2019. Came out a year later. Because of the whole, I don't know. I'm not even going to go into that. Anyway, let's start up the track. So, you might have heard this before, like years ago, or a year ago, and it was called Ants in My Pants. Yeah, but that, as cool as a track name as that is, I changed it last minute before I sent off the masters and everything. So, it's Better Nate Than Lever. If you don't know what that means, Google the longest joke in the world, take a little read for about 45 minutes to an hour, and you'll probably hate me after that. But anyway, let's just get into it. Yeah. So you get it. You've heard the tune. If you haven't, go listen to it. It'll link in the description and all the other links like SoundCloud, Spotify, whatever. Also, correct myself. This one was not Ants in My Pants. That was Ravy Jones' Locker, which, by the way, will be the one that's on Patreon. So go look at that. Maybe a week or 2. So yeah, everyone likes to start with drums, so that's what we're gonna do. Start with these drums. Yeah. Let's give you a little listen to how the loop sounds by itself. Later on, you get some more breaks in there. All right, so there isn't a whole lot of things, like special things going on. All these little percussion things, for the first time, were actually kind of done on purpose instead of me throwing loops together. And we'll get to that. So, like anything, kick, pretty simple. A little too compressed if I'm adding that. It's probably later in the chain. A snare. I don't bother making my snares because that's just not me. This came from an Urban Dawn sample pack without any plugins. Entirely too big for what I want, so I just tamed it. Transient shaping takes off all that unnecessary tail. Some EQ. There's a lot of stereo information. I don't need that. Not a dance floor guy. Mid-range, stuff like that. Another one. I got the sound I wanted. So basically, another EQ just for a little taming of the highs. I like how this one rolls off the highs a little bit better. Or a little bit, not better, but smoother. So it's more of an aesthetic choice, I guess if you want to call it that, than a technical notch out frequencies kind of thing. So altogether, or kick and snare. And the snare is going to a drum reverb. So no reverb. and with reverb. Just a bit of room, bit of splash. Put my own in there. Now we got percussion, which is a bunch of loops that work together to make a really like skittery sound. And they're all little individual hits that when put together right, and this took me forever, they sound like one cohesive little loop, you know? So hi-hat shakers, a think break and amen, all that good stuff. And a ghost snare, why not? Yep. So we got that snare's still going. Yep, little rim shot to act as a ghost. Another little layer just to beef it up a little. Both of these from the Urban Dawn sample packs. It's from Loop Masters, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, you know his drum's ridiculous. So I had to, I don't know, just take them and put them in my own thing. What's this? Little percussion loop. A percussion hit that I just arranged in a certain way. Now we add in hi-hats. Just keep adding them in. Shuffles. There you go. Now you can see them a little bit better. Let me get rid of this mixer, by the way. Yeah, you start seeing how every little hit like fits together within the grid. Another hi-hat. You see how you start to get that rhythm that is kind of like moving. There's the velocities are changed a little bit, so there's some forward momentum added to it. Let's add another loop in there. Some of them do hit on the same beat. That's okay. They just more or less reinforce each other. And the timing, I kept it pretty tight, so they're all stuck on the grid. But then I also swing it 60%. If you go up here, you can see my grid's quantized to 16th note at 60% swing, because it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. So anyway, let's add another one. And another one. Ooh, shaker, only on the right side. That one's just really subtle because I almost couldn't even hear what it was doing. But anyway. You see how we're building this rhythm up? A little weird loop in there. Shaker for the left side and the right. A bit wide. Filling that audio spectrum. Not the audio spectrum. I don't mean frequencies. I mean soundstage. There we go. And a think break. Because you got to have a think break in there. Yeah, and later, like iterations, there's a ride. Over here, you got an amen. Really high pass, really wide. By itself doesn't make a whole lot of sense within the context of all of these drum loops. It sounds decent. And see right there, you already got the groove going. As soon as you add that kick and snare, it solidifies it, and we're grooving, we're vibing. Let's get it all together. Nice. So all these individual hits don't have much going on to them. Transient shaping to get rid of any kind of room sound. Always do that. And then EQ just to make sure there's not a lot of low end nonsense going on. That's not an EQ. That's an EQ. There we go. There's a bit panning like on the shaker. Subtle things left and right just to make room for the snare and the kick. Now, I process all these loops in a percussion bus. If you watched any of my breakdowns before, basically you'll always see the same template. In this one, Probably not the best. Like looking back on it now, I might not have processed it all the same way, but I got the sound I wanted, so I was okay. But all these are basically compressed very heavily. So, and I didn't do a whole lot of good volume matching and gain staging. That was a year ago, Winslow. This is me now. Well, I'm different now, you know. So, no plugins. Honestly, it sounds like a mess. All the plugins on. It, by itself, it doesn't sound so great. I took a lot of the high frequencies out. It does sound a little muffled. It's a lot tighter with a less room sound and less sustain, so you can really hear every little tick and talk, whatever. Good. Every little percussion hit, basically. All the transients are there, not a lot of tails, except for like the washiness of the A-man and like the think break. No problem. But still, compressed, slight saturation. This is one of my favorite plugins. It's free, but it's on Windows only, and it's only 32-bit, so you'll have to get like JBridge. If you have Cubase or FL Studio, you'll probably have you have the built-in bridge for that. So works really well though. Then we got an EQ, again, rolling off that low end, taming some of those shrill highs, because once you start stacking all these little high frequency hi-hats and everything, it can get nonsense. Now, does it need all these little things? Nah, I could have just made one, but that was a year ago, Winslow. Why not? Took some of the transients down, again, tightened the room, tighten the sustain just a little bit, so you get the little tick, 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 but you don't get like whoosh, all the washiness room sound. And that comes up from compressing. So if looking back, I might have not compressed it so hard and just gain staged it better. That could work, but also this works. As long as you get the sounds you want, no problem. Now, side chaining. It's kind of from the heavier side, the more neuro dance floor stuff, where you want to side chain everything to the kick and snare, and that's what I'm doing. I want this kick to pop through, and it doesn't do it without the side chain. So let's do it without. Not really. Now with it. And you can see it only activates on the kick that's on the one. The little ghost kicks that come later, don't really touch it too much. That's more of a stylistic thing, a personal stylistic thing. You could do it if you wanted to. Same, also side chaining that snare. It's a fat boy snare, so I gotta make room for it to pop out. So let's do without. I gotta do the snare, dummy. It is still showing up, but it's disabled, so. Now let's do it with. It's kind of subtle, and you really have to like dial in, but that transient of that snare comes through, and that's all I want. I'm not really worried about the body or anything, so it's pretty tight. Like the release, 4 or 5 milliseconds, enough to let that snare, that transient crack through, and then it like opens up. So like if I wanted to show you more drastic, I can just. Yeah, so I did it more subtle. It's more I did it more subtly for more of a mixing decision than a stylistic make it pump, Dead Mouse progressive house 2010 vibe, or Fred V and Graphics 2011 where everything was sidechained back then. You know what I mean? Anyway, so all these drums again go into a main drum bus, which, guess what? Even more compression. And again, looking back, probably not the best idea, because I kind of wanted a more clean sound, but I also didn't know any better. And this track is full of things that I just didn't know any better, or I didn't care. But that's how most of my tracks go most of the time. It's just weird. Anyway, so heaps of compression. This is a supercharger from Native Instruments. It was free for like Christmas or something. So, yeah. subtle distortion, little punch button. I'm pretty sure that's even slower attack. Add some. I think this is it models after a tube compressor. I'm pretty sure. So if you look into those, something I think another two. No, 1176 is. I don't think it is, but I think that might be what it's. I'm just stop talking. Just look it up. Anyway, it's probably like it's relatively cheap. Then they have like the paid version, whatever. But it's really good for just crushing drums and a little bit of parallel compression. Although I smashed them so much you can't really tell anyway. EQ for a bit of balance. Again, that top end just nonsense. It's probably the think break. You can't even hear it. No, it's nothing actually. I already took that out. But it's just unnecessary top end air that can just be annoying later on. Some low end in the kick that probably was a later choice to make room for the bass, which we'll get to. Some mid range. Not mid range. That's probably. Yeah, it's this kind of area that doesn't. It's kind of empty, so I made sure to pull it down a few dB. No biggie. We got ozone just as a limiter, just to really curve off those peaks, because that can mess up things for later. Again, very subtle. Very subtle. I got this idea, this technique, whatever, from London Electricity, watching his video. Not personally. I mean, we haven't talked that much, so I don't know that. But anyway. We got a filter just for when it, do my little low pass, high pass, that kind of deal. Or no, this is for like the telephone effect. Pretty sure we're all aware of what that is. That. Automating, that's all it is. Automating on and off. This is one of my favorite plugins called Smexoscope, something like that. Basically shows you a real-time waveform. What I use this for is to check my transients and when I'm limiting, because I just want to chop off those unnecessary peaks, but I don't really want to limit the sound too much. And I really didn't have to, because again, I compressed the hell out of it. All right, a little filter from Xfer, same guy, Steve Duda, who makes Serum, LFO tool. It's just for some high pass and stuff, like, yeah, helps take away some energy in that low end, then bring it back. And that subtle contrast in sections is what can add impact to your tune, in my opinion. Then a good old leveling thing, that's all. Utility plugin to bring up and down the levels. And that's the drums. So yeah. Again, with drums, for me, I really want a crisp sound. I want a tight sound. I want groove. I want swing. I want movement. And that comes in the bits between the notes. The 1, 2, 3, and the 4 are all good. But you want the ands, the E's, the 1 E and a, 2 E and a. You want swing. Nudge some things around, add some swing on your grid, whatever you want to do. But it's gotta have some flavor. Can't be plain, That's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, add some human feel to it, I don't know. Anyway, let's go on the bass. Pretty simple. Sine wave stuff. If you know me, it's silent. Just a little quick patch I made. Triangle wave, some noise on top. Yep. A little trick I did was add LFO tool to get the little pulsing sound. And then I just turned that on and off, basically to go from this to this. I just automated that. Now I could come over here to the envelope and, automate that or make two separate patches, but that felt better using LFO tool, so that's what I did. Again, really simple, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on a triangle wave. You can do that. I have faith in you. Next layer, it's basically the same patch. Add a little square wave in there for some harmonic content. Isotope trash, some saturation, same LFO tool trick, EQ, compress, distort with Camel Crusher. You can use Camel Fat. Both of are discontinued technically, but if you have Logic Pro, then you have Fat Effects, and that's the exact same thing. Simplon is a filter, low pass, bring it in and out. I'm pretty sure this one isn't. Oh, it is. It's really not automated like it is, but then it doesn't even play in those sections. It opens up a little bit, no biggie. EQ, just to make sure I have it in the space I want it, in that frequency range. It's a layer. It's to add a bit of flavor, a bit of seasoning on top, and it helps it poke through like small speakers. It's another trick picked up by Mike Kiss and some other people. But I'm giving credit to him because I really like what he does, and he puts out my tunes on GoFat, so I kind of owe him. Anyway, yeah, that's that. Oh, bass. Here's a little. Add like a little noise. Really subtle. Honestly, in the full mix, you can't hear it, but in this section, you kind of can. Very subtle, but I could honestly probably take that out. It'd be fine, especially when like the arpeggios and stuff are going on. As far as that's basically it. Now this is like an 808 sample I made in Spire a long time ago. Again, just a triangle wave, decay, no sustain, basically a little bit of release. You'd be better off finding an 808. But yeah, the track actually started like this, from this idea, because I wanted something more jungly, and I was going to make it like an Amen tune, but I'm not good at that, so that didn't happen. And I went into my Better Nathan Lover pocket and brought out some ravey nonsense. I like it anyway. All right, second half, we got the upright bass. I know that's what everyone's waiting for. If you've made it this long, or if you skip through, hey, check what I talked about the drums before this, so scroll back if you'd like. So upright bass. I've talked about this plenty of times before. It's this instrument, multi-sampled instrument called meat bass. And they have pizzicatos, it's plugging, you got bowing, whatever. I open it in this plugin called Sforzando by Plug. You can open it in Contact. You can open it in EXS24, Ableton Sampler. This is just what I used at the time. And it sounds like this. Now, I'm just going to be straight up front. This sounds nothing like that without this whole wall of plugins. I'm not going to go completely into it. I'll give you the gist of things because, yeah, like I said, a year ago me just threw plugins and stuff, and now I kind of know better. But I have the CPU, I guess, to run it and then bounce it also to audio because, so with no plugins, it's pretty rich, warm, upright bass sound. Honestly, it's not bad on its own. Like tunes I'm writing now, I would use that by itself, a little EQ here and there, but But here, going for that super compressed, almost document 1 kind of sound. Or someone on YouTube said, document 2. So, I just like one by one the plugins so you can get an idea of the processing. So we got an EQ. Transient shaping. In this case, I'm upping the sustain just to bring a bit more of that body, a bit more of the tail out. And it gets even more pronounced as I do what? I compress that audio. So, guitar rig, fat boy compression. It's my favorite thing ever. But because of compression, you get all these little nodules and these peaks. So I had to process that. Saturn to crush it even more. Camel Crusher to compress even more. In EQ to clean up the side information. So can't really hear because there's nothing there. And to act as a high pass filter for the really low stuff. And also this all lives on top of that sub bass that we talked about earlier. That's why there's high passing. Camel fat. Man, just compressing just the ever loving snot out of this sound. EQ to work out peaks. Another EQ, even more. Another EQ. The high frequencies are going crazy. All these later EQs, how they're like, this one isn't too much, like 6 dB at the most. But these are the ones at the end are where I'm starting to mix and make mixing choices to fit with everything else. Another transient shaper to bring down the sustain now that was added from all that compression and everything else. And another EQ for some peaks. Again, this is definitely mixing, not a sound design sculpting kind of thing. Not going for tone, just going to get rid of gross nonsense, basically. And if I'm thinking correctly, this is also took the sound from another tune that was before this, and then just tweaked it to sound better in this time when I made it. Now, I doubled it. Why would you double it? Well, I want a wide sound. See, this one, it's fully mono. This one is stereo and compressed even more. But because it's stereo and compressed even more, somewhere in here is a really high pass. I'm not going to look at it. If you eyeball both channel strips, same stack of plugins, this one's 6 dB quieter. Again, acts as a layer, fills out the side information, adds a bit of dimension. Yep. And then this last little thing, again, the same thing, copied once more. It's an even wider version of the string-based stereo, basically, and even louder compressed. Basically, I want that ending 4-bar phrase, or not 4-bar, but ending phrase, ending measure. There you go. That's the right term. To poke out even more, so you can hear the contrast between sections. Yeah, that contrast helps add forward momentum again. It helps add interest, and it just sounds really cool when you just like beating the hell out of a string, a virtual string, because it's an instrument. It's a sampled instrument. But other than that, there's a few fills here and there, which is the bass bounced and reversed. Nothing big there. What's this? This is a fill. No big deal. I just remembered I made this. I really wrote most of this track on like old YouTube streams. So if you want to see like that process as well, you can check that out. Yeah, that's basically it. Musically, it's all built on the same riff, the same melodic progression. So like that's just inverted. The other one's dum da dum da dum, and then that one's dum da dum da dum, backwards basically. It's like the retrograde. If I really want to get into music theory, Is that when you? I don't want to get into that right now. And then the string bass part is, again, same riff. I'm just passing it back and forth between different sounds or different versions of the same sound to again add interest. From like an arrangement point of view, it would be like, having a solo instrument, then having the section played at the same time. The going back to solo, the whole section, or an added instruments. That's how I think of things. Yep, same progression. All that's laid on top of that bass. All these basses, again, bass sounds, the string bass sounds, by the way, are bussed together so I can filter them, low pass, high pass, that kind of do little filter sweeps. There's some mixing EQ to blend them together. Yeah, see, small peaks. I could have done them all in one. I did them in separate because, why not? And a little filter boy. Yeah. So now that's drums and the bass. Yes, if you made it this far, sweet. If you've just been skipping around, I hope you found something interesting. I don't blame you at all. I'd skip around through this. If I was watching, that's what I usually do anyway. All right, let's kind of breeze through these top ones because all this melodic stuff isn't all that interesting, in my opinion. And I wrote it, so I get to say that. So, loads of opening and closing a low pass filter on some arpeggios. Lots of reverb. These arps are just presets, not that crazy. From Spire. Really good synth. 2 of them. Solo it. That's one of them. The second really adds more of like a dreamy, high, ethereal kind of quality to the top of the main arpeggio. I didn't name them. Spire 1-1. Who cares? There's no... Yeah, it's automating the filter up and down to make it plucky, not blocky, that kind of thing. There's some feel kind of things here with, like, yeah. With the reverb, no big deal. Now these chords, they follow the exact same progression. I play them on the piano first, as I usually do. So the piano line you'll hear now is how everything really started. That's usually how I write these things first. Heaps of processing on the piano, as you can tell. Love throwing some delays around just for our atmosphere. Subtle things. You don't need a lot, just a little bit here and there. Really tricks the ear into feeling like there's an atmosphere. There's a lot going on in your sound stage when it's just little bits and pieces here and there. Cool. Yeah, not going to go a whole lot into the piano. The sound, what is it? Contact, the Maverick. It sounds okay, honestly. And I just beat the snot out of it with plugins. Most of these plugins are mid-range, low pass, high pass, mid-range, high pass, chorus, vinyl, EQ, mid-range stuff, peaks, bringing up the highs because it's a relatively mellow piano by itself as far as like overtly processed electronic music goes. You know what I mean? Mid-range. That's not really mid-range. It's like high mids. So more of you can hear like the press of the keys, I feel like, and some more high end rolling off the low end. Pianos are just some kind of beast. And for whatever reason, I high passed all that stuff I worked on So again, a year ago, me made dumb decisions, but me now. All right, we got that. This little reverb thing, smile, filter, volume, mixing. Again, not really a big deal. I would love to say I'm super meticulous about things and this all is like scientific and very whatever. No, if it sounds good, it sounds good. And what I'm good at is getting the sound in my head inside the DAW to a point. Still working on that too. So that's that half of the synths, arpeggios, pianos. Wash the sound for some pad while that bass rip still goes on. Piano, a little syncopated rhythm just to keep again, forward momentum, moving on. Like, definitely this track and most of my tracks, I want them to move and push forward. Never feel like you're just kind of sitting there feeling like you have to fight not to feel that groove. That's my goal, even with mellow tunes or aggressive, angry sounding ones. I always try to put that in there. That's my signature if I ever have one. All right, we got pads now. Now, again, pads, same chord progression as the piano, as the arpeggio. Let's break down by layers. So we got Contact 5 strings, doing some slides, some portamento business. I turned it off, I think. Or maybe I didn't. Nah, it's a different one. Basically, they're all like strings. This is a strings. Can't hear from this. That's interesting. They might not be. I might not have reinstalled them because my hard drive failed, which is why one of the projects are lost, by the way. I managed to recover this one and most of my other ones. So like some synth strings in a basic Studio One plugin, thrown through a gate, EQ, panning, LFO tool. You get the business by now. I use the same plugins for basically everything. Layer those with those aren't even layered or anything, really. Some reactor pads. I just picked a preset and rolled with it. Then there's a main pad up here, Spire. Preset, nothing too technical. And I'm just going back between these instruments to get a different character, Some strings have a bit more richness in the highs. Some I want a bit more mellow, so I take that out depending on the energy I'm going for. Yep, all these are processed. Stereo widening, just a tad. EQ, why is it all the way over here? Subtle balancing, that's it. Sausage fattener, one size fits all compression, basically. I'd usually try to keep it between 0 and 10 or 1 and 10%. Even 0 does something, but like 1 and 10%. Anything above that is a bit too aggressive for me. Roll off with the low pass, volume, another little mixing thing, which is basically, if we really look at it, I just turned down the signal by a dB. Again, old habits die hard. So anyway. Yeah, so basically what you get in here is more arrangement than sound design or sound anything technical. It's just bringing in string sections, bringing in different sounds, different atmospheric bits here and there. And all this does is just to serve the other parts. The drums and the bass are really what carry the tune. Everything else just helps push it along by accenting the rhythm in different ways and adding different characters to the sound that's around the drums and the bass. Like, that's honestly not something you can really teach. You really have to listen and just figure that out on your own, how to bring things in and out. Definitely listen to music, like orchestral music, band music, jazz, all things that are, you have like full on actual instrument sections that you can, look at music, see how they're brought in and out, that kind of thing. It just comes with experience, it's not something I could give you like a step-by-step guide on how to do. So keep working at it. All of you are really good at this. Or you show promise because, you care enough to put this amount of energy into it, or more or less, you know what I mean, to figure it all out. So that's the synth pads, which I just name it all one big bus. Not a whole lot of processing. Track spacer to make that kick and snare pop through, I'm pretty sure. The snare. Again, Fat Boy snare, you want it to pop through. And that one, track spacer, does it on a more frequency basis. So instead of knocking out the whole signal, it just targets these middle frequencies where it's the most prominent. So let's add that snare just so you can get an idea. To make that smaller, mute it, mute. You can see it just in there. Yeah, that's all it does. And what do you get? What we got so far? We've done all this. All right, we are basically through. All these other things don't really add a whole lot to the track. We got a nice little sample pack loop with some vocals. Before, lots of unnecessarily low frequencies. Tighten it up, did some EQ. I filter them every now and then. That's basically all I gotta know. Send it to a reverb, delay. Not a whole lot there. It basically repeats over and over. I did chop it up myself just to get different rhythms out of it, especially on those ending phrases. Fun fact, if you go to Apple Music, I guess Siri did it, or maybe Label did it, but there are lyrics that say these exact things. So, just a little interesting little tidbit. Blue stuff, the effects, not a whole lot going on there that I need to talk about. Some white noise sweeps, some splashes, some this and some that, That. Yep. Now this, some little Foley background effects for the break. It's a coffee shop. Random recording I found off freesound.org. Put some effects on it. Add some background atmosphere for when this break is going on. It's breakdown. And that's basically the tune. Except for one part I did look over, which is this middle section where it goes into like the jazz section. So we got this little intro from the piano. Now, if you really want to get meticulous, this is where we get meticulous after all that. So check. So this loop, right? A nice little eighth note swing jazz thing, halftime. So that's why it's eighth notes, not 16th. Now that's nowhere near on the grid. It's pretty loose. And that's okay because this section is all on its own. There's not a whole lot of things marking time here. So what I did is basically quantize everything to this drum loop, which isn't quantized to the rhythm of the rest of the tune, which gives it that contrast again. So this section plays, the next section plays. There's enough to like grab your ear and get you moving again. So I move the bass, I nudge the bass, just a little bit to add up to the kick in the snare of the jazz loop. Like, again, eighth note swing, so it's, if you half time this, these are going to be the eighth notes are going to equal your I'm drawing a blank, but so we got 16th notes in the grid at 174, but it's more or less 16th notes at what's half 176, 88 BPM. That's how you gotta look at it. So I nudge those over. The piano plays at the same time, so I nudge those notes over as well. Like, it's a bit of a lazier swing, a more laid back, a more jazz club, a bit groove. You change that vibe, that drop hits even harder. And while this wasn't really planned in the beginning, when I got to this section, I need something different. And this is also around the time I think I wrote Swing and Miss. That might have came after this project, a little bit before. But that one's also jazzy, the jazz loop, little ride loop in there. So, just continuing my own trend, I guess. But matching that timing up, really nice. Like, they're not even too tight of a timing. It gives you more of a live feel. A more human feel, which I feel music needs. Not a whole lot marking time. There's strings. Those are very not on the grid. The tacks are slower, so they just blend in the background. And you get a whole different feel. So let's go. Yep, a bit lazier, a bit laid back. It really makes you want to hear what comes next. Yep, and there's not even a whole lot of disjoint between the rhythm of the jazzy section and the rhythm of the straightforward, we're back into it. All it takes is a little string transition to bring you right back into it. Yep. A little major seventh chord. That's jazz. And then the rest of the tune is exactly what you've heard, what you expect, and that is Better Nate Than Lever. So I hope you learned a little something. Maybe you got some ideas. Maybe you saw how terrible I was at processing things and stacking 20 or 40 plugins on something just to get a sound that might have only taken 3 or 4. But you live and you learn. I'm still around. I do better now. So any questions, as usual, comments, put your questions in the comments. Send me a message, email, whatever. If you're in the Discord, you know where to find me then anyway. If you want to invite to the Discord, send me some tunes, ask me for a link. It really is focused for producers, but, because I got nothing else to say. I mean, you probably understand. Again, the rest of the EP will be broken down, the projects I do have on Patreon. And there's plenty of other things there too, in case you feel like, I don't know, throwing a little bit extra support in there. I do appreciate anything, everything, the likes, the whatevers. You don't have to give me money. But if you do, I love you even more. I love you more than I did yesterday, and not as much as I will tomorrow. That's what you got to tell your lady. Or your significant other, whoever that may be. Anywho, I'm done yapping. This has been me, Winslow, breaking down Better Nate Than Lever. If you haven't heard the EP, check it out. Link in the description. Send me your spaghetti recipes. I'm out.